Good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome on into your FreightWaves Now Community Spotlight. I'm Kaylee Nix, and we are here to kick off your Friday with Mary O'Connell, talking all things cold chain with running on ice. Mary, thanks for being here.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me. You know that this is the number one way to start your weekend. Like, yeah, we have tacos and check call on Tuesday, but this is really how you send out the week.
This is the way to do it. And of course, we're here talking once again about the pharmaceutical cold chain space. You are back once again with the folks from Cardinal Health. What are we covering this week?
So this week, we have talked about the pharmaceutical cold chain a lot lately, but kind of for good reason. It's going through this huge, I don't want to call it like a technical revolution, but more or less it is. It's getting all of the upgrades in the technology and assist that dry van and transportation has gotten over the past few years. So pharmaceutical is really having its moment in the sun. So this time we really dive into, some of those things that really equate to waste in the supply chain. So obviously, we've talked about food waste and other things like that, and how people or shippers are really working to combat that. But we've also, there's a lot of waste in the pharmaceutical side, which seems weird because, drugs have a relatively long shelf life, except when they don't. So we really kind of dove into some of those practices today in different ways to kind of optimize everything throughout the entire supply chain, whether that's integrating with different vendors, technology providers, you name it, a kind of a comprehensive total solution.
Another thing that's weird about hearing that there's so much waste in pharmaceutical supply chain is the cost factor, right? Because we know that drug costs and drug payments are one of the things that plague Americans the most when it comes to spending their money. And a lot of that has to do with kind of the bigger ethos of the American healthcare system and health insurance and yada yada. But at the same time, things are expensive to produce. And so you would think that there would be at least some initiative in order to keep that waste as low as possible because it's a money saver. But is that actually the case?
Absolutely. I mean, if you listen to the episode today, we break down some of the more specifics. But one of the things that Joel had mentioned, our guest Joel Wayman, he had mentioned that, there are some shippers that just by implementing certain changes can save tens of thousands of dollars a month. And to be able to just automatically say like, oh, okay, I can just add $20,000 a month back to my bottom line. Like that is huge. And if that just means I have to change some of my processes and make things a little bit more efficient, and really a lot of pharmaceuticals are going back to that just in time inventory situation, which I know we saw a lot of people deviate away from in COVID era when shipping times were a little less predictable and things were a little bit more chaotic, but we've moved back towards that. And it's really something that when you get it right, you can get it so right, and you can save so much money and you can reduce a lot of waste and other stuff like that. But you just have to be able to get it right.
The just in time versus just in case argument when it comes to pharmaceuticals is a very fine line to walk because it hinges a lot on risk assessment. If you are a shipper or if you are a healthcare provider, your ability to hold on to those things, whether they be medicines, whether they be supplies, things like that, is very, very dependent on your risk averseness, right? And I think that COVID was one of those things that really highlighted that fact and scared kind of people into that more just in case. We're going to stockpile, we're going to make sure that we have all of our goods. And now, as we get a little more comfortable, we wean back towards that just in time model, as you mentioned. But the fact of the matter is, there will be another health crisis that comes on the horizon that shakes up the world again. There will be another health crisis on the horizon that says, "Hey, no, we now need to have stockpiles of these items again, just in case." When do we think that we start to see, I guess, maybe more of an acceptance of that idea of like you not being in just in time or just in case mode, but riding that fine line?
I think it comes down to the different types of products. So obviously within the healthcare, there's, the medicine that you're going to need every day. And that's kind of your daily prescriptions, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're going to have those weird, like your flu shots, your vaccines, other stuff like that, where there's going to be a huge seasonality bump for those. Obviously coming up here in the fall, everybody starts getting their flu shots. And so it's really important, I think, to kind of keep in mind that seasonality, but then also know where you can get away with some extra, I don't want to call it stockpiling, but just having a little bit of a surplus inventory, and then where you do need that just in time. So, for example, your saline, your other things that you're going to use every day and you're always going to need no matter what, those you can kind of get away with having a little bit more on hand, and the things that will definitely be consumed before it goes to waste. That that's going to be a thing. But then some of those more specialty items, maybe those drugs that are used for more rare diseases or other things like that. I'm not going to pretend to be a medical expert here. Some of those lesser known or the lesser needed items, those you can maintain that just in time, because in theory, you're not having, I don't even have a good disease to say, but you're not having Lyme disease every day compared to something that's like a broken arm or something like that. That's probably a very bad example, but you know what I mean.
None of us are medical doctors here. We're just in logistics, and that's why we're on this show and not delivering actual legitimate medical advice. One of the things that you guys get into talking about today is this idea of shared resource logistics. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that is and why it actually is pretty useful in the healthcare space and why Cardinal Health is continuing to use that model?
Yeah, so it's really that's where they found a lot of the success that they have within their inventory management systems, and that's something. It sounds weird, like the shared resource thing, but it literally is just something as simple as your shipper knowing, okay, this is how much I'm running. This is our production schedule. This is when we're going to need these certain types of trucks. This is when we're going to need this. Having your shipper share their production schedule, and then with your logistics service provider or your carrier or whoever, have that production schedule kind of established. And obviously, like, things will deviate, it's not the end of the world, but if there's a good guesstimate of how many trucks you'll need, when you'll need them, etc., then that leaves your logistics department or your logistics service provider or whoever, that gives them the time to make sure that they have those trucks there, maybe one or two more on standby, so that way the second those are done, they can pick them up and then immediately take them to where they need to go. And then also, all the way down into your distribution centers or some of your other, your kind of like your medical facilities or other things like that, saying like, okay, we see that production on these items is going to end or is going to be completed on Monday. So we know that if we want orders from that production run, we need to submit them by Monday or Tuesday. And so that way they can get their goods by the end of the week, and really just kind of minimize the amount of time that things are going to be sitting on the shelf not being used. And also, make sure that the right product is getting into the hands of the right people, because you don't want to send a whole bunch of product A to Florida and it really needs to be in California or something like that. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that each part or each region is getting what they actually need.
Makes sense, right? You want to, again, minimize waste and maximize productivity. And it seems like, this should be common sense. But in reality, it's not always as simple as that sounds. Mary, when it comes to the show later on this afternoon, as well as your newsletter, where can people go to find both of those?
Well, if you are a visual person like myself, you can watch the new episode on YouTube. You can make sure you subscribe to FreightWaves and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our other amazing shows as well. And then if you want to read the newsletter, it will be out today at 2 p.m. If you want to subscribe to that, you can go to freightwaves.com/running on ice. And if that's not enough, you can listen to Running on Ice anywhere you get your podcasts.
And the Future of Freight Festival is coming up here in Chattanooga in
Yes.
about 3 months. We had a sweet deal for Future of Supply Chain. Does the same thing happen for F3?
I mean, if you subscribe to Running on Ice, there might be a little something something in there for you if you want to go to Future F3 down in Atlanta. And if you're not sure, come to F3. It's so fun. It is honestly like the biggest party in logistics, and I feel like we should start making that its tagline. It's the
Yeah.
biggest party in logistics.
Manifest might have some beef with us. But, anyways, F3, we'll see you guys in Chattanooga in November. All right, Mary, thanks for joining us this morning. We will catch up with you more next week.
Thanks, guys.